Good evening to everybody here. Also, welcome to Christiane and Ambassador Sanjiv Arora. Um, all the three of us have joined here for the joint passion that we have for Lebanon and also because of everything that happened last week. But it is also very crucial to understand that everything that is happening in Lebanon is not a result of what happened last week alone. There have been too many things that have been happening over the last 1 year, which has really culminated into everything that we are seeing in Lebanon and in Beirut today. So a little bit of geographical context for Lebanon, because it's very crucial to understand the kind of region that Lebanon is present in today, where you have an Israel to the south, you have Syria to the east and the north. And, there are just too many players within the Lebanese context that become very important to understand. And apart from all of these things, it's also very crucial to understand, and of course, Christiane and Ambassador will help us understand, is this multicultural system. The Lebanon that a lot of us don't understand in terms of the nuances, where you have a system where you have a president from a certain community, you have the speaker of the parliament from a certain community, and then you have the prime minister from a certain community. You have to bring all of them together in. It's an extremely diverse country, too many interests, and a lot of things going around in Lebanon. And to be very honest, on a more personal note, my interest in Lebanon began during the October Revolution of last year, when I saw people taking it to the streets, and when you saw the former Prime Minister, Saad Hariri, who had to then step down. That was when my interest in Lebanon began, and I've been following it ever since. And I think last week's explosions were practically, the end of it. Like, it had literally tested the patience of Lebanese public. And the anger was for all of us to see. And the Hassan Diab government, that is the government that was in power during the last 6 months, had to step down last evening. But from a context of mine and the others, I'm very happy that we have Christiane here, and I would not like to delay it any further. So my first question to you, Christiane, like, I was sitting in Delhi, and it shook our hearts when we saw what happened in Beirut. Like, it started, we were getting footage, but nobody was knowing what was happening, but we knew that it was something huge. You, as a Lebanese, as somebody who lives in Beirut, what did you feel when those explosions happened?
Yes.
What was running through your head?
Hello all. Let me first thank you all for your concern and your passion for Lebanon. Your Excellency, thank you for your passion. Well, I have been born in war, and since 1975, I witnessed explosions, bombarding, dying people, blood, but I have never saw such an apocalyptic image. It was horrifying. I was not too much far from the blast, and I don't know, it's a miracle that I'm speaking to you, and I think a lot of people are still alive by miracle. It was not something ordinary. It was not something we have witnessed ever, like the explosion of and the murder of Rafi al-Hariri or anything else. This horrific explosion occurred on Tuesday, 4th August at 6 p.m. It's a peak hour where people are on the road. It has been ranked the world's third largest explosion, taking the shape of a mushroom. We saw like a mushroom, and we all said it's a nuclear bomb. We felt it and we saw it. Let me tell you, when I left the place, the location where I was, I had to walk till my parents' house, because they were next to, in Ashrafiyeh, next to St. George Hospital. Speaking to you, I felt like I was in a horror film. We were like all zombies, holding our heads, all in blood. It's been from the downtown till almost Dora. it's a big distance. All has been burned, all has been destroyed. People were in the road zombies were with blood all over. And we were like, nobody could talk. I passed next to the hospital. I can tell you, I saw patients with their serum, handling their serum on the road, left all alone. It's horrifying, and this explosion caused a massive destruction. It was a 140 meters water-filled crater where two port buildings stood. I don't know. The biggest question today is who in Lebanon can store this much ammonium nitrate and evade suspicion? Who has the financial and logistical capability to buy, store, and hide so much substance if the substance were there? Till now, in Ashrafiyeh, we are living as a nomad, and in the banlieue of Beirut, people are like nomads. We already have been like nomad because before this blast, on the 17th of October, as you know, we started the revolution. But people are fed up because they want the truth. We have witnesses. We had witnessed a lot of assassination and murdered and explosions of figures in political field, activists, journalists, but till today, we don't know the truth. We are surrounded by corrupted leaders. They are all corrupted. When I say all, you know, some are more corrupted than others. And His Excellency has met with a lot of them. I don't know, people today are feeling very disappointed. It's the first time where we don't have any hope. As you said, we are being sandwiched in the region, and people are still dying. You know, there is the death toll rose till 200, and I'm expecting more. And there is more than 6,000 wounded. Among them, more than 120 critical cases, which would increase the number of death cases. And there are more than 300,000 people on the road without home. Personally, my family, my parents' house are today without a home. I'm today with you from my home in Gemayel next to Jouni because I lost also my office in Beirut. All of this is nothing when you see a mother seeking for her kid, or a father or mother crying her daughter. I think it's a crime against humanity, and I think we should stop hiding the truth. We are living in an hegemony which is torturing, which is squeezing our freedom. And if you want me to talk about the political side, we'll do it after. So I don't know if I let you know, I let you feel how's doing here.
Right. Before I pose the same question to Ambassador Sanjiv Arora, I should take this minute to also, point out that Ambassador had posted an extremely heartfelt message on the day when the explosions happened. His WhatsApp profile picture, in fact, is of the Lebanese flag. And a lot of us in India stand in solidarity with everything that has happened in Beirut. In fact, so much so, I stayed up till 3 in the night, desperately trying to get in touch with friends because I wasn't able to get through. Ambassador, this question is for you. for somebody who is so passionate about Lebanon and you've also spent time there, what did you think, or what was going through your mind when the explosions happened in Beirut?
Well, let me quickly thank Ravi, our director of BIC. I would also like to thank Ambassador Nirupama Rao, our former Foreign Secretary, with whom I've had the privilege of working. And really appreciate Christiane joining us all the way from Beirut, and Madhuvanthi steering this conversation. Let me say that from the time this horrific tragedy befell the friendly people of Lebanon on the evening of 4th August, we've been extremely distressed. Our deepest condolences to the wonderful people of Lebanon, one and all there. We are with them fully in solidarity. Our hearts cry for Lebanon. Our hearts cry for the Lebanese people. Well, there's so many fond memories, as you can imagine. I mean, it is, I would say, second home for us, for me and my family. And from that evening, we've been in continuous contact with so many friends. And I know, I mean, the extent of devastation has been unimaginable. I mean, there are Lebanese friends who have told me that, well, this is a tsunami. This is, somebody else said, this is Hiroshima. I have received so many pictures of houses destroyed, and I'm familiar with the area. In fact, the embassy where our Indian embassy, where I served, as Ravi said, from the end of 2016 till February 2019. It's not far. It's not far from Beirut port. I visited Beirut port on various occasions, and my house also, where my family and I lived, is not far from where this catastrophic tragedy took place. So I think this is a matter of undescribable, I would say, distress for the people of Lebanon. It is a matter of deep concern for every well-wisher and friend of Lebanon around the world. It's a very serious concern for the region, because Lebanon, historically, it has always been pivotal to the region. It's a region of such great and highly complicated geopolitical dimension, and Lebanon's role, I would say, has been very central. And it's a cause of a very serious concern for the international community. Let me just add that when I saw the title of this discussion organized at a very short notice, and when Ravi approached me, I said, Paradise Lost. And I immediately knew that it had the imprint of a wonderful poetess diplomat who lives in Bangalore, that is Ambassador Nirupama Rao, with whom I have had the privilege of serving over the years. And anyway, on the aside, I think so strong is her inspiration and influence over the Bangalore International Center that the director changed my name from Sanjiv Arora to Sanjiv Rao. But that apart, I sent a message to Ambassador Rao. I said, I instantly knew you have suggested this title. And anyway, in this hurried message, recalling John Milton's poem Paradise Lost, and then I also impromptu remembered, this very poignant poem of John Milton on his blindness. So I said, Well, the paradise might be lost, but they also serve who only stand and wait. And I, of course, from my heart, I had all the Lebanese people in mind. I don't want to preempt the course of our conversation this evening, but I know this is an unprecedented low. There's already been a multitude of challenges for Lebanon. Uh, you know, very complicated politics, the very serious issues of misgovernance, corruption, accountability, the extremely serious economic crisis, which in recent months has been the worst since the civil war ended in 1990. And of course, this terrible pandemic, the whole world is suffering from the slings and arrows of this outrageous pandemic. And as you know, Lebanon, of course, has been shouldering all the economic fallout of hosting nearly 1.5 million Syrian refugees. The internally displaced persons after the Syrian civil war, in addition to the nearly 500,000 Palestinian refugees who were already there. So what I was going to say that in view of all this, you see, even the best of my Lebanese friends would say that, come on, Sanjiv, why are you saying the paradise is not lost? But I sincerely believe, and it is not only because of my infatuation with Lebanon. It happens with envoys, with ambassadors, that they tend to romanticize a country where they are accredited. But I mean, as a diplomat, I speak both from my heart and my head. I don't think the paradise is lost, and it is my strong belief that it is the resilient people of Lebanon, with their phenomenal fortitude and determination. That is the greatest hope. And I think what would happen in the months and years ahead, it is my sincere wish and hope that it would be steered in a very peaceful, in a very consultative, in a very inclusive manner by the great people of Lebanon.
Thank you so much. In fact, Ambassador has touched upon a lot of topics here, ranging from the economic crisis that is ongoing and the political system, the misgovernance, the corruption, etc. My next question to Christiane is going to be about the political system and the political leaders, your politicians,
yes.
etc. Just to draw some context for the audience here, ever since the October Revolution that Christiane mentioned began, it has been the politicians who've been central. The people of Lebanon have predominantly revolted and protested against the corrupt political elite of Lebanon and have blamed them for misgovernance and have also blamed them for the economic crisis, that one of the worst economic crises that Lebanon is facing ever since the civil war. So much so that, there are people who say that Lebanon somehow has not been able to move on from the civil war, which ended almost a decade ago. So very crucial to understand what an average Lebanese feels about a political system which they feel hasn't changed. One of the main demands of the October Revolution was for a technocrat government to come in power, a government which was away from the politicians, from the traditional politicians who've dominated Lebanese politics. And they wanted a more fair and a more transparent and a more accountable government to come to power. But we saw everything that happened, and that was the government that stepped down yesterday. So, Christiane, my question to you, as a Lebanese, what do you think has gone wrong with the politicians? I mean, they are one of the biggest sources of problems, as we seem to be understanding from the sentiments of the Lebanese people on the streets. What is
Yes.
your view about the politicians
Yes.
and the political?
First of all, I want to mention something that Mr. Sanjiv and you know Lebanon better than I know, and it makes me feel, give me hope, as he said. But let me tell you, this is a long story. It didn't only start by the revolution on 17th of October. We have been shouting since the Cedar Revolution, 2005, after the murder of Rafiq Hariri, that we don't want anymore to get involved in the exterior wars and conflicts around. Our constitution is violated each day. The monopoly of the milice of Hezbollah is working, is acting as the government, as the head of the state. In our constitution, it's very clear that neutrality should be our hallmark. What I mean with neutrality is non-belligerence or non-belligérance, as we say in French. We can have all the empathy for our sisters and brothers and their cause in the Arab countries around us, and we can support it, but we don't want to get involved in Syria war. We don't want to get involved in Iraq war. We don't want to get involved in Yemen war. We have been shouting since 2005 because Lebanon, I don't know, unfortunately, is being sandwiched between Israel at the south, Syria at the north. One state, we are not in a cold war, and not in conflict with like the other Arab countries. We are in a day-by-day war with Israel, and as a state, as a free state, Syria, or the regime is in Syria, doesn't accept that we are a free and sovereign state. So you see, all over, and even if anything occurs in Ukraine, we are here to pay the price. If anything occurs in Iraq, we are here to pay the price. I'm not saying that I don't want the Shia party. They are my brother. We are all Lebanese. I don't want the illegal weapons anymore. I don't want, as a Lebanese, as a mother, as a journalist, to have arms that are outside the hold of the army. We don't want to get involved. The Patriarch Rai said it very clearly. He said it before August 4, because the region and Lebanon was boiling. Frankly, we were all expecting something big. We were all expecting that a clash would happen, because we cannot continue like this. Our freedom is violated since years. We have been in war since 1975. We don't want to get involved in exterior wars. This is clear. This is clear. If Hezbollah today put all his weapons in the army, in the end of the army, he's very welcome. We will be united for the sake of this country, but he cannot rule us because he has arms. And if today, and I'm gonna say it frankly, today I had a discussion for the first time after maybe 10 years with a soldier in Hezbollah. I know they are afraid because as a Shia, they feel Hezbollah, Nasrallah, the weapon got their back. I told them, you don't need this. You just need to hold on to put your hand in my hand, me as a Maronite, but our others. We don't want to get involved in this. What I'm telling you, why we had so much problem, because not only we have this big strategical, geopolitical problem, because also all the leaders that came since 33 years, of course, there is differences. Of course, I know some responsible that were, and I can name them, they were very clean, and Mr. Sanjiv can witness what I'm saying. But most of all were doing their own interest. Yani, what I mean is, Hezbollah is telling our leaders, you know, you accept our weapon, I accept your corruption. And this is what happened in the port of Beirut. This nitrate, this ammonium nitrate, 2 tons of 700 nitrate ammonium, all the experts say if it all blasts, we would not be here, Beirut. We would be all in poussière, in dust. They were using it, and I'm quite sure some were using it to prepare explosive, as all the studies are showing it since 19, I can say it, I can give you even dates, but this is another subject. And maybe this ammonium nitrate, okay, was used by others to make some deals, you know? So there is a political corruption and economical corruption around us. And people who think about Lebanon, only Lebanon, are treated as, we are like traitors. If I say I want peace, I'm a traitor. If I say I don't want to be involved in other wars, I'm a traitor. If I say I don't want death culture anymore, I don't want to die, I don't want my kids to die, I want to live, I want to make a valley, a Silicon Valley, I want to be the best of the best, I can do it. If you say so you are a traitor to the Mukawama. And today I just told this guy of Hezbollah, and it ended on a very good note, just to tell you. I told it, I'm 48 years old, I'm from Ashrafiyya, I am Gemayel, and I'm still having as a big reference Bashir Gemayel. I make my own Mukawama, Christian Mukawama, and I know what it means. But at the end, I had to abide by the rules. Where there is convention, there is international laws, there is a constitution. We cannot take the country on one side. This is what is really happening. And today this blast showed everything. It showed the corruption on a political side, the hegemony of the Hezbollah, the corruption of our leaders, and all that, their matching policy and their muddy water. It's now enough. Enough is enough. And I think, as Mr. Macron, the president of France, said, we are in a new era. We now are starting in a new era. Does it mean that we have to reform Ta'if? No, maybe no, because Ta'if has never been all in all well applied. It could be. Does it mean that we have to erase all the parties? No, all countries has parties, but it has to be organized, and it has to be on non-confessional, on a non-confessional concept, and truth has to be showed. Never we had been treated as intelligent people, and His Excellency knows We are not idiots. I'm telling all the leaders of all the parties and even some of the revolutionaries, people are not idiots anymore. Please show us the truth. And this is what the international community, and this is what you and His Excellency are doing. That's why it was not a short notice for me. I was so happy. It's an honor to be with you. It's an honor to see people who wants to help without any interest, you know. Just for the example, talking about the gatherings that people has to gather. In the street of Ashrafiyya, where my parents' house is, we saw Lebanese young, Indian, Bangladesh, Ethiopian, French, all helping, all cleaning, all giving food. This is what I want. And what we need, I don't know if I'm very long, interrupt me if I'm very long.
No, please.
All we need is not to fear each other. The fear is the fear, as we said, is an enemy. If you don't fear me, you won't feel like you want to erase me. This is the fear that Lebanese has to live without and start learning without it. But when there is a dysfunctional system where there is corruption and illegal arms, how can we do it? How can we do it? Today, it's time for the Lebanese to wake up. It's time for us to live for us. I have all my empathy with the Palestinians. I know they need a land. This is their right. And I know that Israel wants to live in peace. And I know that Syria has, I don't want blood in Syria. But please, I'm addressing a call. I'm desperate, like all people. It's finished to have others' wars on our shoulder. Yeah, please, first, Lebanon first. Lebanon first, then I will help the others. Then I will help the others. At the 21st centuries, we need blood, or we need always to be in war to feel that we exist. You know, some people around the world cannot live without this. They cannot, they don't know how to live in peace. If they want to feel they exist, if they want to feel they are strong, they need blood. But it's time to help them, not to be like this. Thank you. I've been long. Thank you.
Okay, I think Christiane has drawn multiple topics here, which I would like to give some context for. The assassination of Rafiq Hariri, who happens to be the former prime minister, happened in 2005. After his assassination, we had the Sida revolution, which saw Syrian forces withdraw from Lebanon. For people, I mean, I'm again drawing context here. Syria has played a huge role, in current in the current politics of Lebanon, and especially under the regime of Hafiz al-Assad, who is the father of the current Syrian president. This was one. Secondly, she also mentioned about Hezbollah. Hezbollah is a group backed by Iran, which has a huge role to play in the Syrian civil war, where they support the Syrian regime, which is led by Mr. Bashar al-Assad. So, and Hezbollah is also at odds with Israel. So you know, keep hearing a lot of, cross-border drones coming over and, things like that, very casually happening. In fact, 2 weeks back, Hezbollah and Israel did get on a very serious clash at the border. So, these are multiple things that Christiane has addressed here, and I would now like to take the question to Ambassador Sanjiv Arora. the political class, the anger of the Lebanese public. You've had conversations with the who's of Lebanese politics. And I would like to understand I would like to know your understanding of first the Lebanese political system as well as the public anger and what you make of it.
Well, I obviously empathize with the sentiments articulated by Christiane insofar as the widespread uh, and the very intense frustration is concerned. You see, now, I, of course, during my stay, had extensive and very close interactions with the political leadership and with people across the spectrum of the Lebanese society. And it is indeed a very interesting and fulfilling experience because one thing in that country is, you see, Lebanese per se are highly educated, they're very versatile, they're widely traveled. Let me digress and go back into mythology and history. I mean, let's not forget that this is the country that gave alphabets to the world. You know, they have a very vibrant diaspora. I think almost 13 million. South America is a prime example, North America, Gulf, other parts of the world. So when you talk to them, I mean, they really talk with passion. When you engage with any Lebanese on any issue, you know, you would find a very intense and a very intimate conversation. And this happens also with the political class. Now, of course, for any diplomat accredited in any country, the day-to-day business of diplomacy and promoting your own country's interests and you know, expanding bilateral cooperation in different spheres. So what is extremely important, of course, is the cordiality and rapport, and above all, the trust and confidence with the key interlocutors, senior officials, political leadership, and all. In terms of those interactions, I think it was very interesting. It was very satisfying, and one really received tremendous receptivity, accessibility. That is another great thing about that country, and cooperation and support. Why I'm mentioning this is that much as Christiane and I would say the people across the length and breadth of Lebanon are understandably very, very distressed at the state of affairs, it would, for obvious reasons, not be appropriate on my part to, you know, to in any way make this a personalized discussion against the political class. You see, there are so many friends, colleagues, interlocutors. At the same time, I would have no hesitation in saying that it's not only now in the aftermath of this horrific tragedy that befell that country on the 4th of August, but I remember throughout my stay there, I mean, anyone you talk to says that, look, our patience has been tested for far too long. You know, I think it would be a fair statement to make that for a multitude of reasons, the patience of the Lebanese people has been overstretched. And that is, you see, what manifested in the form of Al-Thawra al-Lubnaniya, as we say in Arabic, the Lebanese revolution, you know, these widespread protests that started in Lebanon in October last year. And well, my understanding is that these were very inclusive. And by and large, I think barring some violent incidents later, but by and large, I think these were these were peaceful, and people from across the spectrum of Lebanese society were involved, whether in Beirut or other parts, Trablus, Tripoli, the historic commercial capital of Lebanon, or other places. So I think given that backdrop, you see what happened on the evening of 4th August. This was absolutely the last straw. And you see, storage of 2,750 tons of ammonium nitrate, reportedly since 2013 or 2014. I mean, it is a matter of very, very serious concern. The Prime Minister of Lebanon, in his address to the country yesterday, and I'm not going into much of analysis of that address, but well, he did say that that there has been a lack of accountability, there has been misgovernance, there has been corruption. Of course, it seems that he was putting the blame squarely at the door of his predecessors. But that apart, so I think the patience of the Lebanese people, as I mentioned, has been stretched, and basically they are people who have utmost patience, grace. I mean, they are very peaceful people inherently. And I know that anybody can say that what Christiane is saying is an emotional outburst, but why not? I mean, you see, as they say in Arabic, "Andakum haq." I mean, you absolutely you have a right. Your point is very valid to express these very strong feelings. What I would say is, Madhuvanthi, that of course, if we start analyzing, you see, the very turbulent and violent history, and of course, history teaches us so many lessons. So I think what is more important is, and it is really for Lebanese people, because I, for one, and I am sure that my voice would be supported by so many, both within my country and around the world, would not even remotely suggest any type of you see a strong external sort of influence in charting the road ahead. So well, I think there is, of course, always a great merit in learning from the pitfalls, from the mistakes of the past, from the history. And the history has not all been bleak, if I may say. I mean, when you look at Taif Accords, arrived in 1990 after the Civil War, and for those of us who are not familiar with that country, you see, it is in its own way a very unique system of governance. Because this is a country that has always been pluralistic, multicultural, multi-religious. Again, that is a great strength of that country, which is also a commonality with a country like ours. So having this system that the president and also the chief of the army would be Christian Maronites, the prime minister would be Sunni, the Speaker of the Parliament would be a Shia. And likewise, and of course, I remember during the period of my tenure, there was also a new electoral law that came into place. You see, this in itself, with whatever challenges, but I think what we have to also see that this has been a system in place to manage a very complicated country with huge challenges, external and internal, that Christiane has elaborated upon, and within an overall democratic polity. Of course, I know that a whole host of Lebanese friends would say that, come on, don't sort of say too much, don't wax eloquent about the Lebanese democracy. But no, I mean, what is, would they like a totalitarian regime? I mean, let's not forget that in this turbulent region, with all the challenges, with all these problems and the dissatisfaction of the people, a democratic system is what has always been governing Lebanon. So I think it is much as I fully empathize with the feelings expressed by Christiane, and which represent by and large, I think, the sentiments of the Lebanese population at large. But I think what they have to really collectively and in a very inclusive way ponder over is, you see, what can be an amicable, peaceful, inclusive process ahead. You see, whereby some of these very serious issues of malgovernance and so on can be taken care of. At the same time, you see, avoiding external influences to in any way, if I may say, fish in troubled waters, because what happens is that, of course, here is a country with so many friends and allies, partners around the world, and India is one of them. You know, our diplomatic relations were set up in 1954 and very deep rooted. But at the same time, there could also be those who would like to exploit this situation. So I think this is really a moment of very serious crisis. It is also a moment for a very serious reflection and introspection on the part of everyone in Lebanon, and I think more than anyone else, those who have been in power, the political leadership of different hues and colors.
Again, Ambassador, I'll again draw some context here. The Prime Minister Hassan Diab resigned along with his cabinet yesterday. Ever since the Beirut explosions happened, we've had ministers resign one after the other every day, which ultimately led to the entire cabinet and the government resigning yesterday. In fact, one of the most important statements that came out of Hassan Diab's speech before he went to the presidential palace was that he and his cabinet carried the Lebanese demand for change. But between the change, I mean, between the cabinet and the change are thick walls. So he's left behind a very cryptic message on what those thick walls are. But this was his statement, and before he went and submitted his resignation. The political system in Lebanon, as Ambassador drew your attention to, requires the president to be a Maronite Christian, who is currently Michel Aoun. And then you have the prime minister, who's supposed to be a Sunni Muslim. In this case was Hassan Diab, and before him was Saad Hariri. And then you have the speaker of the parliament, who is a Shia Muslim, who is Nabi Berri, who also heads the Amal party, the Amal movement in Lebanon. So this is how the constitution, the political system works. Yes. And the current government, that is the Hassan Diab government, which was in power till yesterday, was in power in the parliament in coalition with the Hezbollah. So you also had Hezbollah members, for instance, the health minister of Lebanon is a member of the Hezbollah party, Hamad Hassan. So this was how the system has worked. Now, what we are really hearing after Hassan Diab's government is a multitude of rumors about what's going to really happen. What is the next government going to be? How is it going to be? Hassan Diab is going to be in power till we have a next elected government in place. There are rumors of a national unity government coming in. There are multiple such rumors coming in. I think it's for us, we have to wait and see. And another event that I really want to quickly draw your attention to is the visit of French President Emmanuel Macron, which really brought and drew a lot of attention. In fact, one of the biggest statements that came out of an average Lebanese, a Lebanese friend of mine said that our leaders didn't come and visit us. but you had a French president walking down the streets of the place where the explosion took place. And that is the irony that Lebanon was living, where you had a foreign leader coming in, and where you had a Macron telling that, we need reform and we need change, etc., etc., and that he was walking down the ruined streets of Beirut, but we didn't have a Lebanese political leader coming in. We've had countries also pledge millions of dollars to rebuild the Beirut port, and also in assistance for Lebanon under the current economic crisis which they're facing. Their currency has devalued by almost 85 to 90%. Their food imports have practically stopped. And Lebanon is a country which depends a lot on food imports. And with the Beirut port explosion, their wheat, whatever wheat was sort of kept in the ports are reportedly in danger. So food security is a huge concern in Lebanon. We are running a little short on time. I want to take one question with Christiane, and then we could go to the questions after that. Christiane, we've spoken about everything. We've seen a protest where we literally saw people, hanging cutouts of politicians by the noose and saying that, we need to hang them all by the noose.
Yes.
So in such a sentiment, and with the Hassan Diab government going out of power, as an average Lebanese, what do you think can change Lebanon today from whatever you're facing?
Yes, let me start by saying that the former Prime Minister Hassan Diab and his cabinet must have resigned immediately right after the deadly Beirut explosion, in accordance with the Article 69 of the Lebanese Constitution. They should be do this before bombarding us with fake news and bombarding us with some stories about who put nitrate ammonium, about if they will resign or no. We were bombed by the blast and bombed by stories and fake stories and marketing about, around it. They should have resigned at the moment it happened, but they didn't want because they knew they were behind it, directly or even indirectly. They knew about it. Mr. President Michel Aoun, who is covering Hezbollah, and Mr. Hassan Diab, the Prime Minister, knew about this quantity of chemical products. They should have, at the time, at least the cabinet. Now, as for the revolutionaries, the revolution is today the right of the Lebanese people. But we have to be careful about one thing. When we ask to change the system in a multi-confessional system and society, we have to be careful about how we can change the system. Sure, the system is a very old, traditional one, but how can we change it? It has to be done step by step. And each 100 years of life in a country, some stuff should change, but it should change in a constructive way. Okay, now they are asking to erase all the parties. As I said, parties are here, but these parties, they are part of the society, part of each house. They have to be reorganized on a new concept. We cannot erase everybody. I cannot erase the Shia, I cannot erase the Sunni, I cannot erase the Christian, but everything will have to be reorganized on a new concept and system. And but first of all, we have to be free to change. We are not free to change anything. That's why the cabinet took so much time to resign. And now we're seeing, even now in the parliament, if we should have early parliamentary elections, of course. But who will do this early parliamentary elections? If there is the same system that will be installed with new faces, no, we don't want. We want a free new government of technocrats, of people that rise first, as I said, the cause of Lebanon. If there is no a new real government, nothing will go good, nothing will go on the good track. Did I make myself clear enough? I don't know.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes. So, so what Christiane seems to be suggesting here is an overhaul of a system which has been in place for years together, but the call that we are getting out of Lebanon right now, out of the protests, out of public anger, out of our co-panelist here in Christiane, is that Lebanon desperately needs change. With this, let us start taking questions now.
Yeah. So Madhuvanthi, if I could come in here.
Yes.
We have a guest joining us on the panel. Ambassador and former Foreign Secretary Nirupama Rao, could I request you to join the panel, please? I'm sure Ambassador Sanjiv Arora will be happy also to see you. So over to you, Ambassador Rao, for your perspective on what's happening in Lebanon and also about India-Lebanon relationship, which also I think Ambassador Arora could also address. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi, and good evening, Sanjiv. Good evening, Christiane. Good evening, Madhuvanthi. I've listened to the discussion with a great deal of interest. Both Ambassador Arora and Christiane have spoken with great feeling and conviction about the situation that faces Lebanon today. We all know that this is a country that has long been at the geopolitical crossroads of the Middle East, squeezed, as Christiane mentioned, between conflicting interests, regional rivalries, and power play. But the devastation experienced by Beirut last week has only compounded the serious crisis that Lebanon has faced over the years. And we are faced with a human tragedy of unparalleled proportions. Just the description of the horrific explosion and the mushroom cloud enveloping Beirut seems to tell it all. And since Sanjiv mentioned poetry when he spoke of me at the beginning, I want to share with you a poem that was written by the Pakistani poet Faiz Ahmad Faiz. And actually I credit this being brought to my notice by another colleague, Ambassador Lata Reddy, who is also a resident of Bangalore. I'll just read it for you because to me this distilled the essence. I've never been to Beirut, but this is Beirut as I imagine it. I think Faiz spoke of it so eloquently. I will read it out. Beirut, ornament of our world. Beirut, exquisite as paradise's gardens. Those shattered mirrors once were the smiling eyes of children. Now are starlit. This city's nights are bright, and luminous is Lebanon. Beirut, ornament of our world. Faces decorated with blood, dazzling beyond beauty. Their elegant splendor lights up the city's lanes. And radiant is Lebanon, Beirut, ornament of our world. Every charred house, every ruin is equal to Darius's citadels. Every warrior brings envy to Alexander. Every daughter is like Layla. This city stands at time's creation. This city will stand at time's end. Beirut, the heart of Lebanon. Beirut, ornament of our world. Beirut, exquisite as paradise's garden. Now I come to my question, and this is really for Sanjiv. Given the friendly ties that India has enjoyed with Lebanon and its brave people, its rich culture, its mosaic of traditions, the multicultural society, the rich diversity. Don't you feel that we should at this moment express a special empathy for the suffering of the people of Beirut? And what is it that India can do for them at this moment? Should we not be responding to their need in this hour of suffering? I would like your views on that, Sanjiv. Thank you.
Ma'am, first of all, I'm sure everybody listening to the session must have been touched by you recalling these famous words of Faiz Ahmad Faiz for Beirut. Somebody in the wake of these protests, it is someone from Lebanon, he said, look, traditionally people have called our capital Paris of the East, but well, we are Beirut of the world. So I think that is what Faiz Sahab also articulated. With regard to your question, given our historically strong relations and the commonalities, some of which I highlighted, you know, pluralism, democratic systems, very vibrant and entrepreneurial people in both countries, human resources, I think is a great strength. So given all this, certainly every Indian, I believe, stands in full solidarity with the people of Lebanon, and there is a pervasive feeling of anguish at what has happened. I would certainly envisage our government to take certain concerted steps to send a message in solidarity and support. India, as a friendly, very friendly country for Lebanon, has done it in the past. You know, during the civil war, also in 2006, and on subsequent occasions in the wake of the Syrian crisis, the contributions through the Lebanon Emergency Fund, Lebanon Response Fund, which are administered under the aegis of the United Nations. So in that context, I was glad to see a statement by our permanent representative to the UN last night. There was a meeting of the office of the official coordinator for humanitarian, the office of the coordinator for humanitarian assistance at the UN, OCHA, where it has been conveyed that in the wake of the pandemic, already medical assistance has been provided, and the government is taking immediate steps to send relief supplies. This is something that I suppose would come naturally to any friendly country for Lebanon, to any partner. So I think that is, in my understanding, the latest on this, that there has been, and he used the word immediate. So that means, as we discuss, I would envisage that these relief supplies, medical, and there could possibly be a medical team and so on. These would be sent. And this is something that we need to, I think, really follow up on foremost priority. As I said in some of my remarks, first of all, it is a humanitarian crisis of very, very serious dimensions. And also, well, the importance of Lebanon for the region, for India, for the entire international community.
And I think the Prime Minister had also expressed his sorrow soon after the explosion happened in a tweet, I think, sent on.
That was on the morning of 5th August, yes, ma'am. And as I recall, our Honorable Vice President also tweeted expressing deep condolences and sympathy for the people of Lebanon.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Rao. We will now go to the other questions that have been asked, and we're going to allow people to ask the question. So, Vignesh, if you can unmute yourself and speak, Vignesh.
Hello.
Vignesh, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much. And I thank you for organizing this talk. And it was really heart touching to hear Christiane's understanding of what's happened in Lebanon. And really, our sympathies are with you. And my question here is, of course, I'm a political risk analyst, and my question is on the regional politics. And I'll just cut to the chase. My question is on Israel. So I understand the politics behind the opposition of Israel in the Arab world. Of course, there's a history behind that. But however, apart from the politics which happens in every country against the neighboring countries, Israel in the past pointed out multiple times about Hezbollah storing weapons in civilian areas, not only in Lebanon, but also this busts happen about ammonium nitrate being stored in foreign countries, whether it was in UK or whether it was in Germany. Now, my question is, how do you really see the role of Hezbollah domestically now on, after what has happened in the Lebanese political scene and the regional geopolitics? And can a reconfiguring of relations happen with the new government which will come in place, altering the biggest status quo which has been there for a long time? Thank you.
Thank you. The question is for me. Hello, Vignesh. Thank you for your question. It's not, I cannot allow myself to tell how the relations will be and what will happen between Israel and the Arab countries or even Lebanon. As a Lebanese citizen, what I'm saying today is that I can have empathy for the Palestinian to get their land, because as you said, it's a historical problem and conflict, and even it can be more far than this. And I fully understand the right of any country like Israel or elsewhere to have peace. Today, I cannot allow myself to talk about it, but I know, and I allow myself to ask Israel and the Arab countries around and Iran to let Lebanon live for once a time in peace. This is what I'm asking. They have their conflict. Lebanon has his embassy with the Arab countries, and we want to live in peace for once in our lives. We don't want to be like a tremplin or like the place where the conflicts are. Let them find a solution, and we'll be here to support our brothers, and we will be here to support any peace initiative. As I said, each people has a right to live, has a right to be free, has a right to own their own land. But Lebanon also, as Israel has the right to live in peace, and as the Palestinian has the right to get their own land, okay, Lebanon has his right to live finally in peace, because we don't want to be the land where all the conflicts in all the Middle East and abroad, where all the conflicts are solved. And the problem is they are not solved. Lives are solved. It's enough.
Thank you, Christiane.
Thank you.
Thank you. Shekhar Vishwanathan, you can ask your question next.
Yep. Ambassador Arora, this question I'm asking you because you've lived there. And the question is as follows. I do know that, the Shias, the Sunnis, the Maronites, the Druze, I think they're all represented by constitution in the political dispensation that rules. But what is the real problem in terms of their functioning to root out corruption and to bring a sense of order within the Lebanon framework or the country? Is it because the Shias and Sunnis are kind of 27, 28% of the total population each? Is that the problem, or is it something else, or is it interference by Syria and other countries that is causing the problem? I'm not able to put my finger on it.
I think, Shekhar, it's obviously very daunting, to even endeavor to respond to this question. And a lot of the articulations from our friend from Beirut, Christiane, I think gave her perspective, which is also shared by a very large number of other Lebanese people on all these challenges, both internal and external. Well, I think you mentioned demographics and so on. Nobody can change geopolitics. Nobody can change demographics. That is true of every region. That is true of every country. And going back to the end of the turbulent 15 years of the Lebanese civil war from 75 to 90, well, as an outsider, it would appear to me that there was a very serious effort to have a system where these different sects, different affiliations were represented in a balanced way, a certain give and take and so on, so as to come up with a system of governance that would ensure peace and prosperity for the people of Lebanon. So what has happened is, I think that is obvious. I mean, with all due respect to the ruling elites, that the trust of the people of Lebanon in the ruling elites has been broken. I would say it has been shattered. You see, when I say this, I mean, of course, I'm unable to really speculate in one direction of the other, but for a host of reasons, because after all, you see, a system of governance is really more than anything else. It is a compact between those who are the rulers and those who are the society, I mean, the citizens of that country. And in a democracy, I think this compact is absolutely of paramount importance, more than in any other system of governance. So that is where I think is really the big crisis, that that trust and confidence has been shattered. And that is where, as I said earlier, I think it is through an inclusive, consultative, and very peaceful way that the Lebanese people have to find a way forward. I mean, again, there are, of course, constitutional provisions. Well, the Prime Minister has announced the resignation of his government last year. But this has happened many times in Lebanon before also, including during my tenure. And the government, as of last evening, has become a caretaker government. So in what way there can be a broad-based representation? I mean, for example, even in the current government or the previous government, there were representatives of civic society also. I mean, talking of now the caretaker government, for example, the foreign minister, he was somebody who was among my first interlocutors in Beirut, because he was heading the foreign ministry. He's a career diplomat. So I think coming up with proposals and candidates who would be acceptable in a very broad-based way to the Lebanese people. And if I may seek the indulgence of the moderator, there was an earlier question, mainly, I think, focusing on Israel and Lebanon. Yes, of course, there has been, a very steadfast state of hostility, enmity. But again, somebody may say that you are possibly being far too optimistic, but situations change. Let's not forget that both countries have a shared stake, a very strong shared stake in the peace and prosperity of their nations, as also the region. Also the gas and oil reserves in Eastern Mediterranean. I know it is a contentious issue, but just look up some of the recent analysis and reports in that direction. I would also like to highlight that the UN interim force in Lebanon that has been there for many years, you see, that has been performing a very important role in maintaining peace and stability in South Lebanon along the blue line, as it is called, between Lebanon and Israel. And it is very heartening that the Indian Army has been a contributor to UNIFIL from November 1998 onwards. Every year there is an annual turnover of our battalion. And this is something which is very deeply appreciated by Lebanese across the spectrum of their society.
Thank you, Ambassador Arora. Niharika, you're next with your question. Niharika?
Yeah, hello. Thank you so much for taking the time to answer these questions. My question for Ms. Christiane is, how do you think the global left has fared in representing the people of Lebanon? Do you think liberals have largely failed in representing the interests of the people?
Sorry, can you, there was a bad connection. Can you repeat your question, please?
Yeah, my question is, how do you think the global left has fared in representing the people of Lebanon? Do you think that liberals have largely failed to represent the voice of the people?
Yes, if you are talking about governments that have been succeeding each other, and yes, they failed. They failed to rule. They failed to help, and they failed to be responsible of the country and the right of their citizens.
Thank you. Nadeem, you're next, please.
Let me at the outset thank each of you who spoke. Masai Khair, Christiane, and good evening, Ambassador. Shukran jazeeran. I want to ask this question. Apart from tackling the deep-rooted corruption in Lebanon, what else can be done to build and stabilize Lebanon? Excuse me. Considering the fact that Lebanon draws a huge remittance from Saudi Arabia and UAE, and most of the infrastructure projects in Lebanon are directly or indirectly sponsored by these oil powers. So do you think it will be inevitable for Lebanon to move closer to these Sunni monarchs in the coming years to keep its economy afloat? And if yes, how would Hezbollah and its allies react to it? And what further implications would it have in Lebanese politics? Shukran.
Yes, first of all, we have to say what the international community is asking us to do, is to make a real reform, a real economical reform, in order to get again the confidence of all the foreign countries around us who are willing really to help us. there must be a real reform in the infrastructure, in all the institutions, starting by the electricity till the public sector. If there is no reform as asked by As-Sanduq al-Duwali or the international fund, if there is no reform, any reform shown by the government, the further government, or even the responsible today, we cannot be helped by any part, I suppose so.
Okay, thank you. Next we have.
Did I answer to your question?
Yeah,
okay.
Thank you. Next is Sudipto Das. Can you go ahead, unmute yourself and speak?
Hey, Ravi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please go ahead.
Hey, thank you so much. I have a lot of love for the country Lebanon, just a lot of interest as such. Seeing the spontaneous demonstrations against the government, and also the spontaneous people getting together to help each other out, because the government was clearly not doing that, you know. I mean, the French president did come, but there was not much thing coming from the local government. To Christiane's point, the people are looking to throw out the system and start from scratch. But to Christiane's point, this has to be done in a very, very measured way because of the demographics. I mean, you want to throw out the old corrupt guard, fine. They're the ones who are going to be power brokering and saying that, okay, this is the guy in the next government. And all of them have got their hands in the pot. If we are to change that, can that happen internally within Lebanon, or do you need a benevolent outsider like the UN or the French coming in to make a thing happen? Because remember, this is a slippery slope. If you play it the wrong way, you could go the way of Libya.
Unfortunately, starting by a committee to make the investigation to know the truth of what happened, the explosion of Beirut, till the reforms that we have to do. Unfortunately, me and my friends and all people in Lebanon we don't trust any local committees. We don't trust them. That's why we need the support of an international neutral committees to come and help us reform all of this, starting by a committee for the investigations. We don't trust anybody anymore, and myself, I would rather prefer to have an international committee for investigation and not an internal one, so we can know the truth. As I said before, and as His Excellency knows, we have never knew any truth about any explosion or corruption or assassination. I'm saying it with distress. I'm saying it with no pride. This is a reality. This is a sad reality. Yes, we need others to help us to be true to ourselves. For once.
Thank you, Christiane.
I'm honored to be with you, Your Excellency, Madhuvanthi, Ravi. Thank you for this warming heart in this disaster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.